Well, I heard there was people upset that there wasn't going to be a basketball program in the neighborhood. So, I mean, I would say let's give some latitude. But
I agree with that. I mean, we might as well give them the opportunity. If there's nothing that you find that's going to hold it up, especially, I guess, the gentleman who contacted you was with Skyline?
Yeah, with Skyline.
Well, then just ask him if it's Skyline or the park.
Is anyone opposed to waiting?
Would this be our first time working with a non-park district group coming and utilizing our facility?
No, because we actually have a group, a church group that would come in and use it as well. That was, if we go back in time, what we did is we honored those agreements. So in lieu of having the policy, we honored the individuals that were using the facility. It had always been, based on my understanding, we had the church group and we also had the park district using it. And we continued with that practice till we, number one, had our policies in place, and number two, we did a thorough study. As you know, Dr. Schilling is in the process with me. We're working on a more thorough process to classify so that people can clearly see where they basically fit within the context of running the facility, and then more importantly, what rate you would charge with respect to the facility.
My personal thought is I would like to hold off, and we're under constant scrutiny over the facilities and over the safety and security within the building. This is allowing more people in outside of hours. Who knows what can be placed or done within the buildings. I would like to make sure that everything is in order. And considering this is less than 30 days, I think it's hasty for $60. I don't see any benefit to us.
But we'll also be under the scrutiny in the community of we're not allowing a group that is bringing children together from our community to, you know, exercise and interact in a appropriate controlled environment, such as a basketball team. And I think that far outweighs right now because we don't have an actual dollar amount. And because, I mean, when did Ryan contact you? That was...
I want to say it was less than a week ago.
So that was more than, you know what I mean, 3 weeks. And he's trying to make plans for the team, whether it's through Skyline or whether it's through the Park District. And waiting for that is keeping however many leagues he was planning on using for in limbo. And I don't think that's...
Yeah, my thought is more of a safety concern. As the community has stated, as a community group has started to raise money for security, this would be people allowed in the building who don't have staff. There's an external company that is hired to do our cleaning and maintenance. And we have no security.
It's the same issue with the Park District coming in and the church group coming in. There's no way that we know that all of those kids are leaving at the end of the day. And we, you know, hope and trust that they, you know, are keeping to their verbal word, whereas opposed this would have a contract at least signed and there would be a rental agreement. So this would be, there's a much higher standard that he would have to adhere to versus the other groups that have used the community gyms for
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
20 years.
I want everything visited to make sure everything's in line. I don't want to make a hasty decision coming up for something that's a week away that allows access to the building. That's my concern.
How would this work? Would they be given keys to the building?
No, what we've done in the past is the building principal, Mrs. Guzik, would be in the building when they had their events. And so, correct?
So what we set up was one of the cleaning staff would open the door at 6 o'clock and they would come in. Yes, and there's a lot of security issues because they would cone the door often, and I would have to go by and say, you can't put a cone in the door, you need to stop coning the door, because they would have the door open. So I never felt safe leaving it. So I would stay, you know, and they would run practice like from 6 to 8:30.
So now
I would be there.
Now that raises another issue, is that we're putting more work on our principal, who's already under
Understood?
a lot of stress and already overworked, in my opinion.
I would suggest maybe looking into, I don't know if you can hire someone to be there that would let them in. What we came into the problem with last year was the 6 o'clock team wouldn't meet for practice, but the 7 o'clock team would. And so when the custodian would go to let them in at 6, if no one was there to come in, they didn't open the door, right? But then the 7 o'clock team would show up, and if I wasn't there, they couldn't get in. So we would have 20 kids standing outside, ringing the doorbell, and I was there, so I could let them in. But if I wasn't there, they wouldn't be able to get in. And then I'd get an email the next day, hey, the staff couldn't, our kids couldn't get in. Which is very valid.
Who technically could be hired to do that? Could it be anybody, or does it have to be someone
I don't
who's
know, maybe.
hired, or I mean?
There's no key fob with very limited access that we could give them?
Well,
Well,
always
it's-
different
it's-
coaches, yeah.
Right. So it's not the issue isn't giving out the key fobs. It's once you have access into the building. Our buildings are not designed so that you're isolated within one portion of the building.
Well, no.
You can walk pretty much anywhere within the building,
And
Correct.
people did.
and it becomes problematic. To Michelle's point.
What would happen was parents would drop off their kids and then stay and start wandering around the building. I mean, I would find people in strange places in the building. Like, come on, you gotta go back. You can't
Does
be
that
walking around the
happen?
building.
Does that happen now with the park district that's using it this year and the?
They're not using it right
They're
now.
not using it right now.
But is West Suburban aren't they using?
West Suburban's it was first day today.
Okay, and do they? I mean,
Actually, was at DLAC today, so I was not in the building. West Suburban runs a 3, started right at 3:05, and I think went to 4:45. Which we did have a parent that stayed, and she stayed on
I
the bench
stayed,
in
I
the
did
front.
not open the door to anybody because there was parents there and I said, I'm sorry, I can't open the door.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
by the way, one of the pictures is gonna fall, I just put it by the.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Let me know.
Thank you.
That's great. But she could have gotten up and walked
But I
anyway.
didn't.
I mean, I believe you didn't. I saw you when I left. But
You could.
So
I
you have
just
to
think
hire
it's a
someone, or
security
is it
issue.
a volunteer hire?
but then it's a my issue is then it's a security issue for anybody who's
Absolutely.
using it, whether they're paying or they're not paying.
Doesn't
Right.
matter.
And trying right now to differentiate between the groups that we've customarily donated our space to versus ones that are going to be renting it. There can't be a different standard for the two of them. It needs to be a blanket, and our policies need to reflect that. That all of them have one person who's going to stand at the door, who's going to count how many heads come in, and one person who's going to stand at the door and count how many heads that leave. And if there's a problem with that, then, they're X, Y, and Z. I mean, just like the park uses right now, they have a checklist. If you rent their space, all of these things have to be done. And that should be in our policies, and that should be a blanket statement for anyone, whether we're donating or charging for our space. Now, can we do that in the next 3 weeks? No. And are we cutting our nose? I mean, we're harming, a program. We potentially could be harming a program or eliminating a program that, from my understanding, is already tentative at best of getting off the ground. I mean, what are we telling the community? Do we want the kids to be running, out on the streets or playing basketball? That's my point.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, but Mr. Shimura sent an email to him less than 7 days ago. If this was a priority for him to get the space, he would have done that much earlier in the process.
I'm saying it needs to be a blanket policy. We can't pick and choose who we hold to a higher standard and who we don't. Whether we want to, have a comprehensive agreement, whether for all people who use our facility versus, we don't have any policy that says you have to contact us 45 days in advance. You're 30 days in advance to rent a space. We don't have any of that. And we can't just start throwing things and hoping something's gonna stick. We have to have a comprehensive, appropriate plan, whether or not it's a rental or a donation. We can't split that hair.
How do we minimize the risk for 2 weeks? Because if they're gonna rent it in 2 weeks, and by the time our next board meeting is, it's 3 weeks from then, right?
But the program's going to start. I'm sure their program goes probably 6 weeks or 8 weeks. It probably goes. So I'm assuming once we give them the commitment that they're going to do it starting on X date, it's going to last for X amount of weeks, is what I'm
So
assuming.
it would have to be conditional on, if we can minimize the risk by having someone there, how can we minimize the risk and make some money and rent it out to the students, or to the kids? If that's possible, then let's figure out how to do it. If not, it's got to be conditional, because what if we if he wants it for 6 months, then he's got to come with a proposal.
Do we have any idea of what kind of timing on top of everything else? We know Dr. Schilling is working on this. Do we have any idea on where, because this was actually talked about many meetings ago. about coming up with a price for it. So, knowing Dr. Schilling's track record and how thorough he is, do we have any time frame, or can we possibly get information to see where this is sitting at, what kind of price he was looking at? Again, it's just a matter of not wanting to jump, because I know it's been a process and it's been mentioned before. I'm just uncertain with the liabilities and for helping the community, but I need to make sure that all of our safety and the security of our buildings is first off in place. It's not even a money factor to me, it's safety. So if somebody has to be hired, is it $60 plus the price of a security guard from a security company to be there? What is it? We need something in place.
Are you finished?
Yeah.
Can we consult with this new security firm that we just retained to see what their opinion is on the matter?
Yeah, we can do that.
Because I'm sure they've dealt with this type of issue. Maybe they would have some advice about how to handle it.
Right. Well, can I go back one step? To your point, our window for presenting this was November. So we have a timing issue because the facility usage that's being requested is a little prior. It's prior to actually having the report completed by Dr. Schilling with his recommendations. So that's why I'm bringing it here, because it's almost a stopgap measure. Could we hire someone? I'm sure we can hire someone, but I know my principals really, really well, and I know that Michelle, if she doesn't feel good about Mrs. Guzzi, if she doesn't feel good about the people that are watching that door, she's going to stay to ensure that we're meeting that expectation. But what we can do, what I'm hearing is, there's more information that needs to be followed through with. There's a lot of questions that need to be clarified. So as superintendent, I'm going to go get some more information and then come back to the board with a recommendation as well as some more information that quite possibly will fulfill the needs that I'm hearing here today.
Just for clarification, I wasn't proposing we hire somebody from the security company. I was proposing we speak to them as far as the policy goes of letting an outside agency come into the school.
Okay. Yeah. So I misinterpreted that. So yes, we can do that.
Okay.
But that still doesn't bring the deadline that they requested. So I'll propose the question again. Do we give the administration the latitude to make a decision if they feel it's comfortable, or are we going to want to wait until we have more information before we make a decision?
I would say give the superintendent the option to see what he thinks is the best for the building. That's what we're paying him for. Sorry to throw you, but
Sure. I personally would like to see more. I mean, I really haven't seen anything on this personally, as far as when they need it, how many kids they're planning to bring, how many days a week. I mean, I don't want to make a decision blindly.
But the decision that you'd be making is delegating it to the superintendent. As a board member, our job is to hire a superintendent and to empower them to make decisions.
Sure.
So do we want to say get more information before we make a decision, or do we want to empower him to say the yes or no? And so, I mean, that's the question that's on the table.
I will second. I will
What do you mean second?
second what Mike said. Empower Dr. O'Malley to make the right decision.
Jennifer, your thoughts?
That's fine. As long as, like I said, the issues that I have raised are put into the decision-making process.
Absolutely.
Tim?
Personally, I'm still against it. I think we need to make sure that the building is secure first.
Frank?
I'll say I think we need to revisit the entire policy, sort of as along the lines of what Jennifer was saying, just as a security issue. I think if we're letting anybody into the building at any point, we have to make sure that it's 100% secure. That's what the community wants. I think that's what we as a board want.
If Mr. Chamura is running the program, then maybe we dictate or tell him that he needs to be the individual at the door checking in the teams as they're arriving for the practices, if that holds him accountable too as running the program. So him being there, he could attest for what team is walking in and how many kids, and ensure that no one's wandering the buildings. I mean, we don't have a section where we can close, a gate to close off the school. So maybe that's something we suggest to him, that he be there.
Understood.